Welcome to Tales from the Fandom, a podcast that brings a special guest out of the multiverse and straight to you. And now your host, David Ginsburg.
Hello everybody and welcome to the latest episode of Tales from the Fandom. Today I am joined by another guest who I happened to stumble across on Instagram, and I am so excited to get to talk with her today, and I hope that you enjoy it too. I am joined by Makayla. Makayla, how are you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good. How are you?
I am doing well. I am glad to have you on the podcast. I'm excited to get to talk fandom with you. And, you know, Instagram is one of those things where I see people like follow me and I'm like, people just randomly follow me. I don't know why. And I just get to reach out to people and be like, hey, I like some of the stuff that you like and come on my podcast and talk about it.
Well, I'm glad that you thought that like I was like good enough for the show. Yeah, this is my first podcast, so I'm a little nervous.
Yay! If I had like cool like little audio like people on the radio do, like the little air horns or the womp 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 womp, you know, first time podcast person, first time podcast.
Yeah.
But I'm excited that hey, I get to be somebody's first time podcast. I enjoy getting to do that, and hopefully it leads into like more podcasts.
It sounds good.
So, Makayla, you are a person that's into a number of different fandoms, and you sent me your very awesome list of things. A lot of great classic fandoms that we're going to talk about today. One of them, which I have been doing this podcast for 4 years now, and when it comes up, I always feel ashamed. I always have that deep pang of regret because I've talked to so many people about Doctor Who and have been told so many times that I need to watch Doctor Who, and yet I have not done so.
Oh. I had that moment, but with Westworld, like a few weeks ago with a friend, because she now has like HBO. Well, now it's HBO Max, but at first it was HBO Now, and she just got into it, and I was like, I've been meaning to watch it, but I'll get to it hopefully.
With Doctor Who, for me personally, it's the same issue that I have with another major long-running fandom, Supernatural, is that there is so many seasons and episodes that I'm really just daunted. I'm daunted by, you know, should I go find the classic Doctor Who? Should I start with like the reboot Doctor Who? Should I start with like everyone tells me to watch the episode with the angel statues and just jump in at that point? And it's just, I don't know. I don't know what's keeping me from watching the show.
Yeah, it is very intimidating because there's a lot of episodes. I know for me, when I first started watching, the David Tennant era, like went past me, so I just jumped in at the start of the Matt Smith years with the 11th Hour, and I'm biased because Matt Smith is my favorite Doctor. Though Jodie Whittaker, the newest Doctor, is currently they're currently battling for my favorite Doctor of all time, but right now Jodie's second. But the 11th Hour is a great episode. It's just like a great introduction to the world of Doctor Who. And also like you get to meet Amy Pond, who's one of my favorite companions. She's great.
How did you first get into Doctor Who? Because I know you said you missed the David Tennant run. You jumped in with Matt Smith, but what drew you to it?
I know like in 7th grade, I started getting into sci-fi and fantasy again. I kind of dropped off when I finished elementary school, went into 6th grade, and was kind of just looking for something new to get into because everybody was into their own things. And I'm like, I guess I should find something to get into too, to talk with other kids about. And Doctor Who was that first show I jumped on, and I thought, you know, it's really cool. It's like time travel, space. And I'm like, okay, those are two things I really like, time travel and space, and cool aliens. Some of them good, some of them bad. But other than that, it's just really creative and really wacky and sometimes very fun and also very serious. It's a tonal mismatch of like everything, and I think it has something to give for everybody.
So you jumped in during like 7th grade to watch it because it's like I need to get into something to talk with other people about.
Yeah.
There, and see, now it boggles my mind, okay? Because I'm thinking back to like when I was in 7th grade and I was getting into Star Trek, and there's like maybe one person in school that would talk Star Trek, and everyone else was like, I can't believe Star Trek. Like that's not cool. Why are you watching Star Trek? There's all these other cool shows to be watching. And now you're telling me that in your 7th grade you got into Doctor Who, and there's like enough people watching it to like talk about it. That's awesome.
It was only my brother.
Oh.
all the other kids at school were like, what's that? I guess I'll get into it. And they never did. So I'm like, my brother's like a phone call away. So we talked about it a lot.
Man, I got all hyped up. I was like, schools are changing. They're like talking about like, the shows, like the sci-fi fantasy stuff that needs that respect.
I try to bring it into classrooms at school today. So hopefully eventually at some point in the future there will be a class on Doctor Who, and I would love to just sit in on the lectures for that.
I bet there are somewhere classes out there, because
Yeah.
it's definitely one of those shows. Not only does it have like that longevity of being around for like what 50 or 60 years now,
Yeah.
but it does have like that mainstream notoriety. You see the commercials for it on occasionally, and it's not something that it's not like, let's for example like Game of Thrones crossover
Yeah.
with like how big that crossed over with like general population of people, but I think it started to definitely make like inroads into at least in America, like that mindset of, oh, there's Doctor Who.
Yeah.
Now, who's your favorite Doctor? Is it Matt Smith? I know you said it is Matt Smith, but Jodie Whittaker's like fighting for your affection.
Yeah, I really loved her from like the first photo of her and like her full costume, and I was like, all right, I love her already. She's got a great trench coat. The coat is really cool. Her sonic screwdriver is awesome. And she has like such an infectious personality. Like from the first episode, she's just already like funny right out the gate. In her episode, like The Woman Who Fell to Earth, like she's already funny. She's already like a fighter, and she's like built her own sonic screwdriver, which I thought was really cool, because every Doctor came with one straight in the pocket. She had to like build a new one from scratch, and she also had to like find the TARDIS because she got separated from it. So instantly she was already a go-getter from her first episode.
Okay, so I know the TARDIS, like totally like down with at least like base knowledge of the TARDIS, and I've seen sonic screwdrivers. I've seen enough cosplayers with what does a sonic screwdriver do?
It's kind of like multi-purpose. It opens, sometimes it opens doors. It scans various things. It can scan people's like vitals, I believe, if my memory serves me correct. I know it's not a big fan of wooden doors or anything just with wood, so wood is its weakness.
That's cool. Because it's one of those like sci-fi instruments that everyone seems to know, but me not having seen it, I'm like, what it does? Is it a weapon, or is it just like a multi-purpose tool of like it can do whatever you need it to do?
Yeah, it's kind of one of those things. Whatever you need it to do in that moment, as long as it doesn't involve wood, it works.
Oh, so many jokes that could be told about sonic screwdrivers and wood, apparently. Like I had so many things like pop up into my head. We're watching my family and I are watching Full House on Hulu to get the kids like into it and be like, look at what we used to watch when we were kids. And all I can think of is like Joey with the wood Mr. Woodchuck, and it's like, yeah, he likes wood. He can take care of it. The random
I remember
things.
that.
All right, so I know one of the things that with Doctor Who is like companion, like the people that get to hang out with the Doctor. How are the new Doctor?
Yeah, it's been a while since they've done like 3 companions in one TARDIS, but I really like Graham and Ryan and Yaz. I think the most recent season was a huge improvement on, at least for the companions, compared to the last one. Because the first one, it's like they're just trying to get everything settled. set up the pieces on the board for whatever story they want to do in the future. But of course, you're getting to know everyone too. So not everyone gets the spotlight, but so like the first season for Jodie Whittaker was all about Graham and Ryan. And then eventually Yaz got a couple of episodes to herself, but ultimately this recent season, it's a group effort. It feels like everyone's really a team. So I call them like, it's usually Team TARDIS, but this time it feels like everyone is on the same page and we're all going on this adventure together. So I think the companions are great this season, but for me, again, Amy and Rory, they're the best. And that was from Matt Smith's season.
Why are Amy and Rory best? What makes them the best of all companions?
Oh no, I shouldn't have said that. I guess for me, again, first time jumping on Doctor Who, those are the people I got familiar with. But I just really liked seeing their story sort of progress because they first knew each other as kids, and then they started falling in love with each other once they were teenagers and young adults, and they got married, went through a lot of things while being married and also being friends with the Doctor. But their story felt pretty natural and very real. Like the conclusion that it comes to is pretty sad, but at the same time, it was beautiful to watch that story develop. I thought it was really sweet.
If I eventually, because I keep having so many shows to watch and so many things coming out, and it's like I always say I'm going to watch Doctor Who. I don't know. Where should I start? Should I start with David Tennant? Should I start with your favorite Matt Smith? Should I start with the new series? Like, give me advice.
I know for many people, it's the very first episode of the reboot, Rose, which is with the Ninth Doctor, played by Christopher Eccleston, and then Rose Tyler, who's the very first companion of the new reboot, because that's usually the one I get like most people saying I started here. But usually it's kind of the beauty of Doctor Who is that every new season kind of feels like the first episode is a new jumping on point. So you don't feel lost. You can jump on in at the first episode of any season, and you're kind of, every season feels its own individual adventure. It's connected in the sense that it's the same Doctor, depending on how long that actor is playing the Doctor, but it also feels like you can jump in and you don't have to worry about the previous season. You can just start fresh and keep going.
I wanna pull a quote from you from the submission you sent over to me talking about fandom, specifically because it relates to Doctor Who. And you said that Doctor Who truly changed your life, setting you on the path to becoming a writer and a sci-fi fantasy lover.
Yeah. I think I said it a lot. Like there's a few fandoms that have, kind of changed my life for the better, and Doctor Who was one of them because I found it at a very rough time during 7th grade, and it kind of like moved me to go, you know what? There is something brighter for me in my future. I know every kid's kind of asked, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I was one of those kids that was like, I don't know. I wanted to be a chef, then I realized I couldn't cook. Wanted to be a fashion designer, didn't know how to do that. But Doctor Who is like the first TV show that made me think about like writing beyond just like how would you write a book? Like how would you write a script? How would you write a TV pilot? And that was pretty cool for me. Like it just opened that door and got me interested in writing, but also it got me interested into sci-fi and helped me find people that were into not like later on in life Doctor Who, but also different sci-fi fandoms, and not feel like kind of alone in it, not feel very ashamed about it, because people can be a bit cruel with the stuff that you like, but once you find people who are on the same level as you don't feel as alone.
Absolutely. I feel that in my bones because I like it's the same thing. I feel it might even be the same thing for a lot of people just out there in the world, is that there are those things where you're like, dang, like I love this, but again, like I'm the only one that loves it, until you kind of find that tribe of people, that group of people that's like, I like it too. And then it's like it's this found family that you can really lean on and discuss things with, and it'll go further than just the show or the movie or whatnot. It just expands, and you make life you like I'm almost 41 at this time, and I've made lifelong friends just from liking the same TV.
Yeah, I think that's like the best thing about Doctor Who for me, because my brother, we don't live in the same house. He lives out in Anaheim, but it's the one way that we usually keep in touch with each other. And sometimes I sometimes go to WonderCon. He's sometimes there too, depending on his schedule and things.
Mm-hmm.
And we usually run into Doctor Who cosplayers, run into other Doctor Who fans who draw amazing artwork. Because I'm like in my own room, I have a couple of Doctor Who like fan art and posters. One is a combination of Doctor Who and Psych, and it has Sean and Gus as the Doctor and the companion, and the TARDIS is a pineapple. It's pretty funny. Yeah. And then like right next to it is a poster of all the Doctors up until the 11th Doctor. I haven't found a newer, updated one that has the War Doctor and Peter Capaldi's 12th Doctor, and then Jodie Whittaker is the 13th Doctor.
I love stuff.
Yeah.
Now, getting away from Doctor Who, because we could talk Doctor Who probably for like the next 10 years of how awesome it is and all the different intricacies, like who would come out on top and all that. To what could possibly be another fandom that goes for an eternally long time, depending on how our brains can handle trying to put everything together. And we're talking about, and I'll go ahead and say it's the Marvel Cinematic Universe that we're going to talk about. And we're talking about it at a very unique time period, because by this time, we were already supposed to have had the Black Widow movie to watch.
Yeah.
We're supposed to be getting ready for the Eternals, I believe, in November.
Yes.
We're supposed to be getting ready for Disney Plus TV series to start airing either now or later in the year.
Yeah.
And everything's been pushed back, and it's weird to not have a year of Marvel after having had 2 to 3 movies a year for the past X number of years, 10 years.
Yeah, but I found like the break time to be pretty good for me, because I get to catch up on stuff that I have missed, because I didn't see Far From Home in theaters at the time. I was busy with work, so I finally got a chance to watch Far From Home. I like Spider-Man Homecoming more, but Far From Home is a good sequel too. And also with the Eternals, I finally found like the Neil Gaiman written comic for the Eternals, which I think the movie is supposed to be pulling inspiration from, but the comic is really good too. I just love the artwork. The artwork is stunning, and the writing is stunning as well.
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting time. I know, after we had Infinity or Endgame and then Far From Home, you really okay, we've got a good breath. Like there's not like a fall or winter movie. We're leading up to like Black Widow, and then everything happened.
Yeah.
And now we have this time where you can take your time with the MCU. You can kind of like go back and watch things and ponder, and it's a great time for people to be discussing about like, well, what's going to happen and who's going to be a player in this like next stage of the cinematic universe that they've constructed, and where are we going to go from here. And it is a wonderful time to be a fan of the MCU.
Yeah, I agree. It's a great time, like this break time, to just go back. And I know for me, there are some movies that I'm not the biggest fan of in the MCU, like the first 2 Iron Man films, for instance. And going back and watching those, I kind of like them a bit more, but I like Iron Man 3 the most out of all of them, because it feels like it takes Tony Stark out of the realm of he's the kind of devil may care type of Avenger, and you're seeing Tony Stark handle just anxiety, handle sort of fame of after what happened in the first Avengers movie, and if he thinks if he's really meant to be a hero, can he be a hero with all the problems that he has and all the people that he's hurt along the way to becoming the genius billionaire playboy philanthropist? But it's a really good character study type of movie. I know the Mandarin reveal is controversial, and at first I didn't get it either, but then I'm like, I think I sort of get it now, years later.
Mm-hmm.
I think because I guess to me, one of the themes of Iron Man 3 is, and it was in Spider-Man Homecoming where Tony Stark tells Peter, if you're nothing without the suit, then maybe you shouldn't have the suit. I don't know if that quote's correct, but
close enough, I think.
Yeah. And I think Iron Man 3 that kind of comes from Iron Man 3, where Tony has to realize, am I Iron Man because of the suit and the invincibility it gives me, not just as an Avenger, but also from life? Or am I Tony Stark because of all of the hardships I've had to go through with my life? So I think it's very interesting. It's a hard-earned lesson in that movie that I think applies very well to Homecoming.
Mm-hmm.
So when I saw that moment in the movie, I was like, oh, that's an Iron Man 3 reference. But Iron Man 3 gets ragged on because of the Mandarin reveal, and it doesn't feel like tonally close to the Jon Favreau movies, the first two.
Yeah, I totally understand that. My movie that I poo-poo on a lot is Thor 2: The Dark World.
Yeah.
I think I've watched it a total of 2 times, and that has been it for me. We've been rewatching. Well, I've been rewatching the kids. They've started going through them in release order. So we've gotten through Iron Man. And we did Iron Man, we did the Hulk, or the Incredible Hulk. We did Iron Man 2. They haven't watched Thor yet, and then they've seen a few of the movies that I've dragged them to, like into the theater. So they've seen some stuff out of order. It's good to go back and rewatch.
Yeah, I have vague memories of Thor: The Dark World. I just remember the Loki scene where he just transforms into everybody, and then eventually gets to Captain America.
Yes.
And I'm like, this is the best part.
Now, were you like a comic book reader, and then these movies came out and you got into them, or did you get into them just because they were out and they were like the cool thing to watch, and you're drawn to like certain characters?
I remember because back when the movies came out, I was in like a local youth, like teen kind of like group thing, like at a youth center. And we all decided to go see Avengers because everybody just wanted to see it. And I thought it was like really cool. And I was like, the only person that I know is like Captain America, because the suit, it's hard to miss him. So I was like, maybe I should get into this a bit more. Like, I knew about Spider-Man because my brother is a huge fan of Spider-Man, and we always shared the Spider-Man movies together and Spider-Man comics together. So I think the first Avengers movie caused me to like branch out and discover new characters that I love, like Doctor Strange, and the new Miss Marvel, Kamala Khan, and eventually the OG Captain Marvel. Well, the Captain Marvel that I know, Carol Danvers.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, like that first Avengers movie was like very cool to me because it ties into like, I'm a big Joss Whedon fan, so knowing that it was Joss Whedon, I'm like, hey, I love that guy. Let's see what this movie is. And it was really cool at the time. So yeah, I think, I went from being a comic book reader in passing to a fan once the first Avengers movie came out.
Now, the Marvel Cinematic Universe spans like I think it's like 20-something movies and a number of different characters and everything. Who do you have? Like, who is? And I'm not even going to say like who's your favorite. Like, what's your favorite movie? But who is your favorite character in the cinematic?
That's a tough one because I really love the story of Captain America. I felt like it's very relatable. The idea of the power of this character doesn't come from like his muscles or his suit. It comes from the fact that he is genuinely a good person who has the best intentions and wants to do the right thing, because he knows that he can contribute something even when people are telling him he can't for whatever reason. But I also love where Spider-Man: Homecoming introduced the new Spider-Man, with Tom Holland.
Mm-hmm.
And I like that. I know we don't go through the Uncle Ben story, but it kind of feels like, at least with Avengers Endgame, it feels like, Peter's trying to impress Uncle Ben once more, but Tony being the Uncle Ben surrogate.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like it's a coming of age journey for Peter to be like, how can I be my own hero versus the hero that I think Tony Stark wants me to be, or the hero and the person that Uncle Ben wanted me to be, and trying to figure out who you are. Because, like, I remember when I first saw Homecoming, it felt like a John Hughes movie in the sense that, yeah, it feels like a John Hughes movie in the sense that it is like a genuine coming of age story. And I love those movies and love those types of stories, because one of the big themes of those is like identity and trying to figure out who you are and who do you want to be. And that's what I really liked about the new Spider-Man movies. It's like he doesn't know who he is at the start. He's still learning. And it's pretty cool in terms of like logistics, because we might have Tom Holland play this character for a very long time, or as long as he wants to. But in terms of story, it's pretty good too, because you get to see him go through all these different twists and turns and see him mess up and realize that part of the journey is just messing up and being like, yeah, I didn't do that well, but I'm still learning and I'm going to get better at it.
Absolutely. And I love that. So not only do you have Tom Holland, really is like, he's closer to the age of like the Peter Parker that I'd like, with experiencing high school and going through that. But as a actor and as someone who loves the character, like what extent he went to make sure that he was able to continue doing Spider-Man in the Marvel Cinematic Universe is something where it's just impressive for him to have like basically stuck his neck out to say, this needs to continue and we need to keep this like partnership regardless. Sony had really wanted.
Yeah. And even though they're like, they want that partnership to happen, Sony's like, but we still want to make Morbius. We can make Morbius, right? We can still make Venom too, right? I give Sony like some leniency. Into the Spider-Verse was very well done. I was not expecting it to be that good, but it was.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, I could go on for like a whole episode about like how much I love it. And it'd be just me saying, oh my gosh, how much I love it. Did you see this scene? Did you see this? And I'm very much excited to like not only see the Spider-Verse 2, but like the all-female Spider-Verse movie that they've been talking about, and I'm ready for that. Like just keep on the visuals and have a solid soundtrack like the first one did, and we'll be okay.
Yeah, I'm very excited for those two. I'm looking forward to seeing them. I've never been more excited for an animated film to win an Oscar than when Into the Spider-Verse won the Oscar. And I was like, it was so well deserved. I was like, yes. And I think I just played the soundtrack for like the whole evening after that.
Now, with MCU and specifically the movie, we've got a lot of stuff that's been announced, whether it's, Black Widow and the Inhumans, whether it's Shang-Chi, whether it's like Guardians of the Galaxy 3 and Black Panther 2. Like, what are you most looking forward to that's been announced? What do you want to see?
Oh, I know that the Super Bowl had a short teaser for WandaVision, and I really loved how it looked. I've watched a lot of classic sitcoms, so when it kind of cycled through all the different versions of Wanda during the decades, I'm like, I recognize that. That seems to be like I Love Lucy or The Honeymooners, or that's kind of got a Brady Bunch vibe or a Bewitched vibe. Or there's like a moment where they kind of flash to the 80s, and that kind of felt very very Roseanne-like, and I thought I recognize that. I like taking a trip through different decades of television. So, and I love different decades overall. Just looking at like the style, like TV and the fashion of it. So I'm very excited for that. And Eternals, because of just how creative the mythology of Eternals is, and just how like the cast list is interesting, and I really love who's in it, like Angelina Jolie, Kumail Nanjiani, Richard Madden. It's like it's got a great cast and it looks really good. And The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, because I know a lot of people are kind of like a little upset that Winter Soldier, Bucky, he didn't get the shield and Sam was given the shield. But when I saw that moment, I was like, I feel like it makes sense in terms of the trajectory of the characters in the films. But I can understand why in the comics Bucky got the shield and then it went to Sam. But I'm excited for that too, because we don't get to see those two characters often. If it's not a Captain America movie, you won't see them together very often. So just to see how they kind of operate in this post Endgame world, like on their own, would be pretty interesting.
As long as they're not stuck in the back seat with each other.
Yeah.
Very cool. I know there's so many things that I'm looking forward to with the MCU, and one of the ones which ties into WandaVision was like the that Scarlet Witch was going to be in a Strange movie, and it's like it's like the multiverse of madness or something. And I just think of, dang, like if they start doing the multiverse, because they already talked about like timelines with the Infinity Gems or the Infinity Stones, and I'm just like, the things that they could eventually do. And we've got the X-Men and the Fantastic Four, like they're back home essentially. And I'm excited to see how much that they're going to put out, but at the same time I just want to make sure they're not putting out too much.
Right. That, I think that's a concern. That's a concern that I have too, and I think others have it too, because it's like there's, you're all like, it's running the risk of, we could be oversaturating like the box office and television with all of those, and then you get a show like The Boys that says, hey, you're doing too much, Marvel. You're doing a lot. You gotta slow down.
Absolutely. But I'm excited, especially once we're able to see these and get everything going again and dive back in, because let me tell you, I've watched the Endgame movie quite a number of times, and it is not a movie that I really skip through a lot of stuff at this point. Like, I still will just let it run as I am working and be like, not tears, but emotions, and just like I'm fist pumping when Doctor Strange shows up, and it's like, oh yeah, like all, I don't know, it still gets me.
Yeah, I really loved seeing Captain Marvel finally join everyone, because I really enjoyed the Captain Marvel movie. I'm a big fan of Brie Larson, so getting to see her be with everyone, I was like, yes, she's here. Let's make this happen. Let's go fight Thanos. And then it's like, wait, they can't do this by themselves. They have such a small group. And then they get everyone, and I'm like, okay, now we can fight. They literally had an army and a Hulk, so they were good.
And you mentioned it while we were talking about the MCU, so we're gonna switch gears now to, dare I say, one of the fandoms that I have been in for quite a long time. I got into it in the second season. I have to make sure I'm getting my memory correct. I got into it in the second season. I was actually working at Blockbuster Video at the time, and one of my coworkers was like, "Oh, I think you would like this show," and she handed me. Now get this was back in the day, so a videotape of Buffy the Vampire Slayer, the first season. They had released the episodes on VHS, and she's like, "Hey, you should rent this and check it out." And I fell in love with it, and so by the time the second season was airing, I am a big Buffy verse fan like Buffy and Angel and all of that stuff. How did you get into Buffy the Vampire Slayer?
Well, I think like a few years ago they used to have it rerunning on TV a lot, and I just happened to randomly flip the channel one day and I was like, I don't know what this is. And it looked really cool. Like it was just like this really cool character kicking bad guys' butts, and like their Willow was awesome because she was a witch and I love witches, so I'm like, all right, you had me with the Vampire Slayer. Now I'm fully sold because you also have a witch on her team. This is great. And I think it's just it's very different than what I had seen on TV at the time. So I was shocked when I learned it was from like the 90s. I was like, this is a 90s show? Because at first I thought maybe it was like early 2000s, but like the first episode I saw was the Halloween episode where every character turned into their costume.
Yes.
And I thought that it was so funny, but very well written, and I had like interesting, like the vampires had like really cool makeup design, and that kind of terrified me. And it was like, this is really cool. And I think it was around the time Twilight was still going on, so everyone was into vampires, and I'm like, okay, but I couldn't get into Twilight or True Blood, so Buffy was the next best thing for me.
Awesome. Yeah, that Halloween episode, and one of the things that I love about Buffy the Vampire Slayer, and it's one of the things when I was introducing my wife to, I said, this first season is really rough. I said, and I straight up told her, I said, we have to watch it because it all starts from there. Like it builds the characters and their relationships. But one of the things that I love about Jocelyn and the amazing team of that wrote Vampire Slayer is they would tie things back in the second season, the third season, the fourth season, to episodes from the first season. Like there are things that happened in Halloween episode where they still carried over into future episodes where they're still referencing things. And it's like, and I love that. I love that about the show, is that it respected what it did with the characters, and it didn't just like, okay, that happened in one episode, okay, we're all done. Like it like stayed with them.
Yeah. I think and because he eventually went to the MCU, that was like a technique that they carried on with as well. And like, yeah, like even though Joss Whedon's not making movies for the MCU or TV shows for the MCU, like you can still feel his influence felt through just how the Marvel movies try to respect things beforehand. That definitely came from Buffy too.
Now, Buffy the Vampire Slayer is one of those great ensemble shows.
Yeah.
Obviously, like Sarah Michelle Gellar coming into it was already like a recognizable name from soap opera, and then doing movies to where like she also got like real popular during the Buffy run.
Mm-hmm.
But I consider it like a really good ensemble show with a great number of characters, whether they're like side characters, background characters. You kind of like fall in love with them. Who do you have? Like who is your favorite character in the Buffy?
I'd have to go with Willow, because in the early seasons I related to her a lot. She was a shy bookworm, and I was like, I'm a lot like that as well. I'm very reserved. I love books. The library is my second home, and I try to go to the library as much as I can, at least when it's open. But yeah, like I loved watching her go from this shy nerd to a very confident and smart and strong person. Like she's not Buffy, she's not Faith or Cordelia, and I love that she was written to be a distinct person in of herself, and she has a very relatable journey, especially to individuals who are a part of the LGBTQ community. I would think people could relate to her story and her discovering that part of her identity and learning to love themselves and find their own community of people who accept them for who they are. And it's such a great story that's carried over into the new Buffy reboot comics, where Willow is already out and proud, but she's still learning a lot more about herself and learning about how powerful she can be, rather than settling for just, I think I can be this powerful, but she learns there's more that she can do, especially if she develops that confidence.
See, and see, you went into a place where like I know, but don't know, because I was into the comic when they started like doing the season 8 and season 9 and like continuing like the TV story, and then I knew that they kind of canceled it and then did a reboot, and I've not been able to get that yet. But that's awesome that like she's already like, they're not just doing like a retread of story, that they're doing. That's really cool.
Yeah, I really like the reboots a bit more than like the continuation comics. I guess because with the reboots, it's like we know, like, it's already starting at a familiar place, but every character is being taken into a new direction. And some characters who weren't given a lot of time in the TV show originally are reimagined in this reboot, like Anya or Drusilla. They take Spike into a new direction, and Cordelia as well, and even Kendra, who was a one-off character, but now she's got a bigger role in the comics, along with Cordelia as well. I can't recall if Faith is in there yet, but once she gets in there, I'm pretty sure she'll have like a big role too, and we'll see where she goes.
That's really awesome. I'm gonna have to pick it up, because I love when companies do that, where they're like, we're going to, Buffy came out in 94, 95. Bringing those characters to modern times, and then just letting them change and have like a new destiny for it. That is awesome.
Yeah, and I definitely recommend the Angel comics as well. They just had the crossover event, Buffy and Angel, Welcome to the Hellmouth. But the new Angel comics are pretty good too. I wasn't always the biggest fan of the Angel TV show, because it was kind of hard to follow a new set of characters, especially when you're so used to the Scooby Gang. But the new reboot is really good. I really like it.
I will say, going back to your discussion about Willow as a character, she is one of like the 3 characters that when I watch, whether it's Buffy or Angel, she's one of the 3 characters that had the best character arc. Like, she had the best character growth, and she evolved and she changed, and she's always that character where you knew to expect something new from her, and she developed. Much credit goes to like the writers and to like the actress Allison Hannigan,
yes,
for really like knocking it out of the park. The other 2 characters that I really find have great progression, at least one of them is Wesley, but from his start in like Buffy and then going over to Angel, like his character was so good. But I really loved like that line that he like kind of like tightrope walked on of, I'm on your side, but I have like other agenda too. And got like I loved those 2 characters and their growth. Dang, now I got to pick up another.
Yeah. I remember like when I first saw Wesley, I just thought to myself, are all the Watchers like just British? Is there like are the Watchers Council just like the HQ is just in the UK? It's kind of crazy, but also very cool.
It is kind of. They're all British people. They're all stuck up and stuffy, except for even Giles was, and then he had to soften.
Yeah.
Now with Buffy, I have to ask, because every season has a big bad. Do you have a favorite of what we had come up against? Like, who's your favorite or bad person?
Ooh, that's a good one. Gosh, I know my first favorite is just seeing Willow go dark, because again, it's like you've always expected one of Buffy's allies to go against her. Like, that's the one thing I realized from rewatching the show. Like, at some point, someone is going to go against her and get more power than her and try to overpower not just her, but also the rest of the Scooby Gang. but it still comes as a shock when it's Willow, because of all the people, you wouldn't expect her. You thought she'd be on her side all the time. So when that moment happened, it's still a speechless moment for me, even though I've seen like that season about a couple of times now. But it's still a shock, because you think nothing could ever like put these two on opposite sides. But the other one that I think is probably Angelus. When Angel loses his soul, becomes Angelus, and it's pretty heartbreaking, because it's like you're rooting for this couple to fight against what destiny has in store for them, and says you're supposed to be common enemies, but they can't be to love each other too much. But once, they had to go head to head, it's still emotional.
It is. It's one of those things. I remember watching that in like a rerun, because I don't think I got into season 2 until near the of it, like the final fight where she takes him out and sends him to hell.
Yeah.
But I remember watching that and being like, dang, and I like that he was able to have this whole other character and really look, you've been hanging out with vampires, you've been slaying vampires, and they're not like really doing much to you, but now here's like Angelus like doing really dastardly.
Yeah. It's one of those unexpected turns, I guess, because it kind of reminds you that in the world of Buffy, anyone can be a friend, anyone can be an ally, and anyone can change sides at the drop of a hat. It's like you never really know who's gonna stay on what team, good or evil.
Absolutely. And I always recommend, if people want like a show to watch, definitely check out Buffy. Again, like I said, get through that first season. It is rough. It is dated. And as you watch it, you realize like iPhones and cell phones.
Yeah.
But it is definitely.
Yes.
Now, Makayla, I do have one last, and you have said, at least to me, in your notes, that you are starting a blog called Your Friendly Neighborhood Blerd.
Yes.
What is it? Tell me about it. Tell people who are listening about it, because I want to know, so therefore everyone wants to know.
Yeah, I've always been trying to, start a blog, and I've always procrastinated about it because, I'm like, do I really have a perspective on stuff that people want to read about? But I've realized, the only way I'm going to find out about that is if I actually go for it. So I'm still in the process of setting up like the WordPress website, but for now I have it as a blog on Medium. So I've written 2 things because we've been at home due to the current health situation. I was writing about, what it's like to be nostalgia over a movie adaptation of a book that I love, even though the movie adaptation is not great. And hopefully get to do more stuff like that, where I get to talk about movies and comics and, of course, more book to movie stuff. But yeah, it's still in the process of being made. But until then, hopefully my Instagram is home to that, and get to talk about pop culture from a different perspective.
Absolutely, it's something that, I guess the thing, and you said you procrastinated on it. Don't know if people are going to do it like that, and that's the thing, especially coming from like me, this podcast now, is that it always shocks me whenever I release an episode, and I'm like, dang, there's people out there listening to it. Like, I don't know who, and I don't know like what they're enjoying about it, because a lot of the times I don't get feedback on it. But I see that people are downloading it, and therefore something is going right. And that's awesome that you have made that step of, well, I'm just going to do it and put it out there, because I mean, your viewpoint might be so wildly different from someone else's that when they read it, they'll be like, oh dang, like I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, I can only hope for that. I'm kind of one of those people that goes, if I'll just keep talking. I don't know if anyone's listening, but I'll just keep going and try not to focus so much on the listening part, because that'll make me nervous and go like, okay, I have to choose my words carefully and everything, or else I'll get scared and just run away from it.
Right. I know I tried not really blogging, but like writing every day, and that just didn't work. Like I was like, oh, I can't do it. I can't write. It takes time.
Yeah, yeah, writing does take a lot of time. And it's always for me, it's been a matter, it's always like the brainstorming process is the longest process for me because I always want to make sure that there are different angles to something that I'm writing about and making sure that I can find my own entry point through at least one of them. I can't cover all the bases, but if I can find the most interesting one, I can just go from there and see where the piece I'm writing is taking me. And that's something that usually happens if I'm blogging or if I am writing anything in sci-fi or fiction or fantasy, like anything like that. So it's the brainstorming process is the longest part of the writing process, but I enjoy it because it helps me just work out what I want to go through and help me find a way to the final draft.
Do you have anything like, because this episode as we're recording is going to come out near the end of August, are there topics that you're looking at that you're like, this is what I want to get done for July, like a particular discussion topic or something to talk about?
Gosh, I'm not sure, but I guess the one thing I like alternate like history stories. I don't know, alternate or revisionist history stories. I don't know which
Mhm.
one is which, but like there's a show on HBO called The Plot Against America that was based on a Philip Roth novel that was like,
Yes.
imagine if, you know, this person became president and decided to get like chummy with like the Nazis, and I was like, that's interesting. And like The Man in the High Castle is kind of a similar thing. And then there's Watchmen that was based off of the comic book on HBO from Damon Lindelof, and I know that Jordan Peele is entering that sort of zone with Lovecraft Country,
Hmm.
and which is a great book. I recommend everybody read the book first before seeing the show because the book is just great. But yeah, like I love stuff like that, and I kind of wonder like why are we so interested in this, or is there like a certain like bigger like message or a bigger goal with revisionist history or alternate history stories? Because there are a lot of them out there.
There are. I mean, even something like or which I read a review about, and I'm like, dang, like that's a movie or not a movie. It's a show I want to watch, but at the same time, I mean, there's a lot of real world stuff going on where
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm going to be able to watch it and then not see what is real life happening and being like, okay, like I just can't with.
Yeah, I totally understand. Yeah, like it can kind of be really scary when you start to realize this kind of feels closer to reality. I don't like it. I want to escape.
Yeah, that happened with us watching Handmaid's Tale. There's
Oh,
like that
yeah.
time period of like things syncing up, and we're like, are you joking right now? Are you joking?
Like,
It's definitely something where my wife and I were like, we
yeah, I had that moment while watching The Handmaid's Tale too, and I was like, I'm gonna go back to Doctor Who. Doctor Who's safe. I'm gonna go back to Doctor Who. I think I can handle Daleks. I can't handle this.
exactly. Like I told somebody, I said I have so many TV shows to watch, and here I am watching Parks and Rec for like the fourth time just because it makes me feel good.
Yeah, I have that. Yeah, I have that too with not with Parks and Rec, but like with Impractical Jokers because I'm like, this feels good.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, we are near the end of this episode. So, for those who have made it to, and congratulations for those who have, because you heard
Yay!
a great episode, and Makayla rocked it on her first podcast.
Yes.
For people who are interested in either finding your writing or following you online, what are the best places?
Well, I'm on Instagram mostly. So it's mwilliams underscore 1998 on Instagram. Instagram's mostly like the primary social media. I use. I'm too afraid to jump on Twitter, and Facebook seems really complicated. So Instagram is pretty good if you just want to hear someone ramble on about pop culture and make very bad jokes about very bad puns too about anything. I'm your gal.
Awesome. Well, I will make sure that I have the link to your Instagram in the show notes and on the website and Facebook page. And then I'll make sure that we have your link to your Medium. If by the time this episode comes out, you've got your new site, I will have that site. That way people can go there and click on it and read what you have got to say about things.
Okay. That sounds good.
Well, Makayla, I want to say thank you for taking the time out of your schedule to talk with me about your fandoms, and I am excited to see what you have coming up.
Thank you for inviting me. This has been really fun. It's my first podcast. This is great.
Thank you for listening to Tales from the Fandom. Subscribe to us on iTunes or your podcast app of choice. Follow us on Facebook at www.facebook.com/Tales from the Fandom to see photos, links, leave feedback, and check out upcoming guests. If you'd like to be a guest, email David at talesfromthefandom@gmail.com.